Today's gospel is one of my favorite to pray with, and I also think it is a beautiful image of discipleship and the journey to be a disciple of Jesus. First, for a little bit of background on the Gospel of Mark as a whole, Jesus begins his public ministry in this gospel with the healing of a blind man. And with today's passage, he concludes his public ministry before heading into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday by healing Bartimaeus, the blind man. And what Mark is trying to show us, and what Jesus is trying to show his disciples, is that spiritually, they're blind. Throughout the gospel, Jesus teaches and preaches and works great miracles, but his disciples don't always get it. Instead, they spend their time in petty arguments over who is the greatest, or trying to tell the blind man to get out of the way, we're coming through. And yet, in today's gospel, it's the blind man who can see. Although he's blind, he's not deaf, and he can hear that Jesus is coming. And he cries out to him, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." Bartimaeus uses that name, Son of David. It's a name or a title that was given to the Messiah who was to come, the Savior of Israel. And Bartimaeus, by his very faith, is able to recognize who Jesus is. He is the Savior. He is his Savior. And he cries out to him, calling for him. But the knucklehead disciples tell him to be quiet, get out of our way, go back to your side of the road. But what does he do? He cries out all the louder, "Son of David, have pity on me, save me." So often, we ourselves feel those temptations either from within or we hear someone from without telling us, "Give up. Jesus isn't answering your prayers. What are you doing? You're wasting your time." Whatever it may be. But we can enter into that just like Bartimaeus by just going and fighting all the more in faith, calling out to Christ again and again, no matter where we are, what circumstance we're in, or what trial we're undergoing. And it's the very faith that Bartimaeus has that attracts Jesus to him. And Jesus tells his disciples, "Get out of the way and call him to me." And my brothers and sisters, Jesus is calling us today. He's calling us to himself. Here at this Mass, here and now at this altar. And when they go and they call Bartimaeus, he doesn't get up and go right away. The first thing he does, somewhat surprisingly, is he throws off his cloak. Probably the only thing that was keeping him warm, keeping him safe as he sat on the side of the road. And many of the saints and the early church fathers point out to this very line in reference to baptism. That in baptism we take off our old lives of sin. We put that away. And we take on the new life of Christ. We live from his very life, from his very light. And it's that light then that Jesus gives to Bartimaeus in his sight. And what we can't see with our naked eye, we can now see with the eyes of our soul. What is it that Jesus is doing in our very own lives? What is he doing in the world and those around us? What is he saying to us? What is he speaking to us? Can we hear him? And it's from there then, this place of humility, where Bartimaeus just stands before Jesus with nothing between the two of them. Everything has been stripped away. That the two of them are able to freely talk with one another. And Jesus asks him, "What do you want?" I think one of the greatest temptations in reading this gospel and praying with it, I know at least especially in my own life, is to put myself in the place of Bartimaeus, hear Jesus say, "What do you want?" and say, "All right, this is what I want." And think that it's just going to come like that. But it doesn't. This whole time, who knows how many years Bartimaeus has been blind or sitting on the side of the road as a beggar. But over those years, he continually, little by little, grew in faith that God would provide for him and prepared him for that moment when he would encounter Jesus and have this great moment of encounter with the Savior. And it's not about saying the right things or doing the right things, and then because we did the right things, God is going to give us what we want. This is a call to discipleship, a call for us to take off our own cloaks, to put away our own self-reliance, our ways of sin, whatever it may be that's separating us from Him. And it's in that place then that He asks us, what is it that you want? And we can come before Him with all of our heart's desires and speak freely with Jesus. But the great gift in here is that he's able to then see Jesus face to face at the end. Just as in the Psalms it says, "Lord, this is a people who long to see your face." It is the greatest desire in all of our hearts to one day, for all of eternity, to stand before God and see Him face to face. And we have an awesome opportunity here and now today to experience just a taste of that in the Eucharist. To see Him face to face as Bartimaeus did on the road, in His presence here on the altar. And so, my brothers and sisters, like Bartimaeus, let us cultivate humility in our hearts, asking the Lord to guide us, to prepare us for this moment of encounter with Jesus Christ.